Okay. Hello, my name is Kirsty. I am the Director of Marketing for GMAT Club, and I have the privilege of welcoming you to GMAT Club's MBA application walkthrough. This is a 6-week series covering applications from the top 25 MBA programs. Every Thursday and Friday for 6 weeks, we are featuring admissions experts and admissions teams going step by step through every aspect of the online application. So I want to welcome you all here today. Feel free to put where you're joining us from in the chat. We'd love to see that interaction. Also, we'd love to take your questions at the end of the session. So please feel free to write those in the comments and we'll get those to Kwamena very shortly. One last thing before we get started is just to be sure to subscribe and like this video to stay updated and support us in organizing more events like this. So I will be your host, and in today's walkthrough, we are covering UC Berkeley Haas. Together with me is Kwamena Hansen-Sackey, the Associate Director of Admissions at Berkeley Haas. So welcome. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Wonderful. Well, let's dive in and get some of these questions answered to help people with their applications. Your round 1 deadline is coming up on September 14th. So what advice would you give to applicants who are just starting out?
I would tell them to really take their time with it. I know a lot of folks are very much interested in getting the application in early and finding out early and then having that behind them and focus on everything else. But I would say to really take your time, do that self-reflection, have that self-awareness throughout the process, and ensure that you have put in everything that you believe we need to know to help us make that decision that you ultimately desire. And so that would be my advice for them.
Perfect. I know that we'll dive into a little bit more about that and what that applicant looks like shortly. So thank you. Do you have any specific suggestions on those who are ready to click submit on their application? You know, are there things that you would say, please go over this again before you hit submit?
Definitely. I think some areas would be one, the essay session, making sure that you have addressed the different parts of the essay prompts, because sometimes folks get caught up and then maybe we'll just focus and keep writing. Of course, there's a word count, but they will just write and miss some of the essential pieces of it. Because and I know we'll go through that later, but some of the essay prompts are like multifaceted. There are different parts of it, and so you don't want to be in a place where you answer one section of the question and leave the other part, and then it leaves it incomplete. So you really want to go back in there and try and look at it from the lens of someone who doesn't know you as an applicant, and think about it. Did I really answer this question? Have I been able to share exactly why I'm pursuing this? Is it clear? Like, does it make sense fully? And once all of those things are said, then you're good to go.
Yes, absolutely. I think double checking, make sure that spelling mistakes, all of those things are covered before turning it in, but making sure that you fully answer the essay, that makes complete sense. So yeah, thank you for that. So for those who are maybe deciding whether or not to apply to round 1, would you suggest that they go ahead and submit or wait until they can make substantial improvements?
It all comes down to the applicant. I think you're in full control of your narrative and what you are sharing with us. And so if you believe that between the September 14th deadline and the January 5th, which is round 2, or ultimately even the April 6th for round 3, there are certain things that could help or could increase your chances, then definitely I would say to wait out. But if you feel like you've done everything, you've been on this road researching, learning about the program for a while, and you've kind of peaked in terms of what you can share, then go for it. Do the round 1 deadline, We review applications the same way across the board. So it really doesn't matter. I think it's for you to apply during the period where you feel like you have the strongest candidacy to present to us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that that's important to make sure. And again, I think we'll get into that a little bit more about what makes a strong candidate, but making sure that you're putting forth your best self is the most important piece versus the timing of it. But I know that's often a question that people have. I need to get in round one, I have better chances of getting in. But it sounds like you're saying, no, you have a better chance of getting in if you're putting forth the best application
That's
possible.
right. That's right.
Okay. Perfect. So what are some top things that you're looking for in an applicant or in the application? Maybe, give us a few options that might help some of the applicants listening today.
So a couple of things that come to mind I would say is one, a clear understanding as to why you are even looking to pursue an MBA. It has to be clear. You have to be able to like really make a case for yourself for that, because you are in your professional journey right now. Why at all do you want to pursue an MBA? How does it fit into your short-term, long-term goals? And ultimately, we also want to understand how Haas would help you get to those short-term goals. What is it about Haas? There are so many other business schools. So what is it? Why do you ultimately want to pursue that MBA from Haas? So we want to be able to get that full understanding of it to also help us better support you to attain those goals, because we don't want a case of somebody coming in not knowing what they want, or seeking an MBA because they think it's cool to say, hey, I have an MBA, or I have an MBA from Haas. So, but we really want to understand how it fits into your goals, and possibly even having a backup plan too, where you'll say, hey, this is what I want to do, but I can also do this, and so there are options there, and the plan is well thought out. And that's why from the very onset, I talked about the fact that this whole application period is about deeply reflecting on your journey and where you ultimately want to get to, and then thinking through what the gap is and how an MBA would bridge that gap to get to where you want to go to. And so those are the key things that we are trying to assess in your application to admit folks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that it means that you're not just looking at where you've been, but where you're wanting to go.
That's right.
And how this extra education will help you get to that point.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So are there any red flags that you see in applications that make you, quickly dismiss it?
So yeah, I think we don't quickly dismiss any application. We definitely read through every application thoroughly, and it's read twice on our end. And because we do understand that if somebody is considering Haas as a destination, there is some level of intellectual abilities that is present. One of the reasons why it might not necessarily translate into an admit is the inability to portray that. For example, with the resume, speaking more about your responsibilities versus your impact or the accomplishments you've had in that organization. There's a place in the application to talk about your employment and to provide us with what you do in day to day. But the resume should highlight those things. So those are some of the areas where in the admissions where we say it's a missed opportunity, because it's not giving us any relevant or unique information that will cause you to be set apart to the rest of the applicants. Another area too is the essays, not answering the question properly. Like our essays are free flow, you get to take it whatever direction you want to go, but ultimately we want you to answer the questions that are listed there. And the other part is the letters of recommendation. You will be surprised the number of letters we get that are very generic, and you're like, okay, I didn't get anything out of this. It's just too basic, and we really look out or seek out letters of recommendation that are coming from folks that understand your goals too, and are championing that goals for you, and providing us with concrete examples to really highlight who you are as an individual. And so those are some of the missed opportunities that would cause an application ultimately to not be to not get that admit decision. So that's what it is. But again, we spend the same amount of time across because we use the holistic review process. So you never know which other parts of the application might shine as you go along. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I think you made a lot of great points. And one of them I want to dive into a little bit more is are the essays. But in order to understand the essays, I think we need to understand the approach that Haas has toward a candidate. And we hear a lot about this holistic approach to the evaluation of an applicant. So can you tell me a little bit more about what holistic means to Haas?
Holistic to Haas is really putting into place the full context, contextualizing the whole application, and all the factors that contributes to one's journey, academically, professionally, personally. So thinking about everything that plays into it, and that's why it's important that you paint that full picture for us, give us all the information so that we can make that informed decision. And so it's not about just GPA test scores for us. It's great, that shows you can handle the rigor of the curriculum here, but what else? We want to have students that are coming to a program that are trailblazers, that are making great and immense impact in the community that they find themselves, and exemplify our 4 defining leadership principles. It's a big thing that matters to us. And so throughout the application, we want to be able to see different pieces of that kind of coming out through the application and through the person's journey to ultimately say, okay, this person fits has culture and would be able to add value to our program. We've been doing this for 125 years. This year we celebrate 125 years, and being the second oldest MBA program, it matters to us the caliber of students that we're bringing into our program, and ultimately what they do throughout their time here and post MBA as well. So these are some of the things that we're looking at.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that goes into play with your 4 defining leadership principles. And I just list those off real quick. The question the status quo, confidence without attitude, students always, and beyond yourself. And so maybe you can elaborate a little bit more about this. How did these 4 principles come into play, and why is it important as you're assessing these applications?
So these 4 came to play when we wanted to reimagine what it is like to be a business leader, and we wanted to set an identity for our program. And so we thought through this, and this was a collaborative effort between students, staff, faculty, and so there is a buy-in across the board. If you speak to any current student, any alum, any staff, they will tell you that this is not just a marketing or branding thing, but it's really embedded into every part of the Berkeley Haas program. And so that's where it came from. And it's been very intentional for us in terms of looking at it as a way to gauge individuals, as I was saying earlier, that we want to be able to really understand certain characteristics, certain attributes of who Haas students should be. And so that's where it's coming from. And we also realized over the years that the defining leadership principles exists, and sometimes it's not coming out as well as we wanted it to, which led to us adding that the new video essay, which is supposed to give students a clear opportunity to speak about that in case they couldn't kind of fit it into any other part of the application.
Yeah, since you mentioned the video essay, that is one of the questions I had for you. And you ask people to choose one of these defining principles and then how you exemplified it somewhere in their life, whether professionally or personally. Do you have any advice on some of the common do's and don'ts for that video?
So do's and don'ts. So it's relatively new, and so I think it's maybe after round one, I'll be able to have that much clearer. But from the AdComs standpoint, as we thought through this and decided to put it up, I would say to really gain an understanding of what the four defining leadership principles are, and
Mhm.
think through which one really resonates with you and speaking to that. So the question is asking about it's one of those multiple pieces to it. We really want to understand um, where that shows up for you in your life journey. And so remember that you only have 2 minutes, so you want to be as concise as possible in terms of speaking to the point, and not running out of time or leaving feeling like, okay, I didn't get to exactly what I wanted to share. And so I would say to do a draft of it first, maybe write it out what you want to say, work through condensing that, do a couple of recordings of yourself speaking about the topic and addressing the prompt, and then ultimately finally get that recording in to us. But again, I'm very much excited and looking forward to it. Folks, as we've been on the road, I've been asking questions about is there a particular way I'm supposed to do it? Should I just say it and just answer? Can I get creative with it? And I'm like, hey, just whatever you want to go or whatever you want to do, sure, do it. For us, we care more about the content of it. So however you want to deliver that, go ahead. Again, you have 2 minutes. So I know that because we didn't want to just leave it open because some might abuse that. And so we want to be as concise, asking you to do it in 2 minutes.
Absolutely. I'm sure that would be so much fun to watch and just hear how people interpret that. And I love that they can talk about different things since there's 4 different principles. So I'm sure you'll learn a lot about candidates, even in that short 2 minutes. So very exciting to have that. And then kind of in addition, Haas is known for having exceptionally creative essays. I know in the past you've had something like name your favorite song. And then this year's essay, which somebody or Shovik also put in the comments, the essay is what makes you feel alive when you're doing it and why. And so I think, how do you get a sense of the defining leadership principles through this essay topic?
It's us wanting to just understand the individual from a very different lens. We know the business school application is intense, and so we want to be able to lighten it up a little bit, and that's one of the questions that helps us do that, because again, it's one of those that also allows you to take it professionally or personally or whatever direction you want to go, and you'll be surprised the different things that we read about. And also, this is one of the prompts that has a two pieces. So it's asking what makes you feel alive while you're doing it and why. Some folks tend to forget the and why piece and just talk about what makes them feel alive when doing it. So just be mindful of that. And how do we look for the 45 minutes principle? We just want to understand how that fits, depending on what it is. So maybe someone might talk about, giving back to the community that they came from, just based on their own personal journey and maybe the support that they received. Folks looking out for them and pushing them to be the best version of themselves. And so that clearly shows the beyond yourself piece. Some might talk about swimming and through the explanation of that and the why, could talk about the student always piece. So we don't want to restrict folks. And also I would say don't try to weave it to suit any part of it. That's why there's a question there the video essay that addresses that. So just be authentic self, just write, and let us do the heavy work on our side too. After you've done all of that, let us also do some of that heavy lifting to try and make that connections there as well.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, I think that's some great practical advice, because you don't want people writing to what they think you want to hear. You want them to be authentic and truly write about what gives them that energy. And I know this is a new question, so you probably don't have a lot of standout answers yet, but maybe we'll have to do a follow-up video and talk about, some of those things that have stood out or maybe that don't stand out as well. We do have a few questions from the audience that I wanted to address. And because we didn't really talk a lot about, some of the more standard things like GPA and GMAT score. So we have Griffin who's asking, are these statistics weighed the same for someone who's been out of school for 10 years versus the average 5 years? Or do you weigh those more heavily?
So it's way the same. We're looking at the applicants holistically, and so it doesn't go against an applicant who has been out of school more versus one who has. The reason being that there are just other pieces of it. For us, it's all about the quality of the applicant versus the quantity of it. So if somebody could be 10 years out and excel because of preparation for that and be well equipped versus somebody who maybe it's just three years out. So it's only a piece of it. So don't dwell too much on that. And I personally have said no to applicants with near perfect GMAT GRE scores. Reason being that that's all they have, and that's not what we're looking for.
Yeah, I think bringing in that experience that you've had in those 10 years and figuring out, like you mentioned earlier, how can the Haas MBA take you to the next level in your career and your life? I think that's the more important thing. And so kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum, we had Nimbus Magic 1 ask, do I have a chance with 2 years of work experience? So, you have someone who wanted 10 years and someone with 2. Is that enough time for them to really understand where they want to be professionally?
It could be. And I say could because for us, we care more about the quality gain. And so for you as an applicant, knowing that you have basically 2 years of work experience, you have more to prove. You have to be able to share more about the skills you've been able to acquire, what you've done in those 2 years, what are the accomplishments, the impact you've had, and be able to sell as to why you're pursuing an MBA and how that's going to take you to the next level. And so based on all of that pieces, could put you at great standing. So don't feel limited there. Yes, the average says what it says, but once again, we're looking at truly the content of the application and what you have to offer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I know some people in here want, have asked questions a little bit more about like their specific profile, which we're not here to answer today. But I think making sure that you have that holistic approach of making sure, academically, professionally, personally, that all of those things are coming together and to benefit you in the program and your outcome in the end. But let's see. So another question from BH to MEM. Should I focus more on my short-term goals or long-term goals in the application? Which are more important?
Both. Focus on both, because we want to be able to understand the the full picture. So possibly it might seem that maybe what you want to do right after MBA might be at a certain point. I don't know, might be a certain industry, certain functionality, but that is what you would need to get to what you want to do long term. And so we want to be able to get an understanding, and possibly that could even be the rationale as to why you want an MBA. Maybe the MBA benefit might not show right after, like post MBA, like a year, 2 years after, but ultimately it would come to play. And so we want to be able to understand that. And I shared again, with everything that's happening in the current climate, having a backup plan is always important. So we can best support you in achieving your goals.
Yeah, definitely. And Shobik had a follow-up question to that. What are some of the characteristics you're looking for in good long-term goals?
I would classify all of it to say that what we're looking for is someone who has done an extensive, research into the goal, and know what the missing pieces are to get them there. And so it's having that knowledge and really being clear as to what the takeaways from Haas would be to ultimately get you there. And so that of course comes in multiple pieces where you could get some of the information from our website. And you might get some of it from talking to current students, talking to alumni who have gone through the MBA program and currently doing what you want to do, and really getting all of that understanding to then formulate what your plan is. And so that is a good long-term goal, or that would be some good characteristic of a long-term goal, and one that is really well thought out. And trust me, you find folks pivoting from one area to the other, but because of the plan, it makes it very realistic, because you're like, hey, this person knows what they're coming in here to do and how they plan on doing it to ultimately get them to where they need to be. The lack of makes it a little difficult to sell, because it's like, okay, and that could be the difference between being admitted versus being on the wait list, to give you a chance to kind of flesh it out a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and to understand what you're wanting long term, Shobik had another follow-up question about, what does that time frame look like? Is it looking like 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road? I mean,
it's whatever you wanna frame it as. These are your goals, so you tell us what you want to do.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much for those insights. And Griffin had one just follow-up question. Just maybe you can help us understand where the virtual campus visits, or if Haas is offering any of those, where those could be found, or how can applicants who are living abroad explore the school for a virtual visit?
Yes, so we do have virtual campus visits. They are coming back in September. School just started. Usually we like to give a couple of weeks to allow our students get settled in a little bit, and then so it's going to be on the website. So just continue to look on the website once we next week or next 2 weeks, and we should have the information there on how to do that. Some of the mock class sessions and the opportunities to talk to our student ambassadors, and the Q&A session with admissions and stuff like that. So look out for that.
Okay, great. I know you have a long list of events over there, so we'll have these applicants go and check that out in a couple of weeks and make sure they can get plugged in. And then I think we have time for one final question before I want to have your final thoughts. Naman or Naaman, sorry if I mispronounce your name. Is there an age limit to be admitted into Haas?
No, there isn't. It's not something that we factor in our process. So yeah, we cannot play that into consideration. We are just looking at exactly what is being asked of you, the academic, the personal, and the professional.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you talked about that earlier, again, just about how is this MBA going to help you in your goals? And so I guess no matter what that age might look like, just making sure that that's accurately conveyed in your application. So I want to we only have time for like one more question. So I just wanted to hear some final thoughts from you. What advice or something that you want to leave these applicants with at this point in the process?
What I will share finally is that, again, you are in full control of the portrait that you're painting for us. And so really take advantage of that. We don't know anything about you but the application that we get to read. You know, if you're fortunate, you might get invited for an interview, but you need to do something to get you to that point. And so you should take advantage of painting the full picture for us. You remember there are thousands of folks that are applying, and so you really want to stand out. You really want to pull the reader in to learn about you and help you just illuminate who you are as an individual as well. So just be intentional, be authentic, and all the best.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for your time. I feel like we probably could have covered a lot more in another session, but really appreciate you answering the questions here. So for all of you out there, remember to like this video to help other users find this information, and subscribe to the GMAT Club channel to get more great content, including the Haas application walkthrough that is coming up immediately after this. So you can see the link down below. But thank you so much, Kwamena, for your time, and good luck to all of the applicants out there.
Thank you very much for having me. Take care, everyone.
Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.